Hello everybody, welcome to the Four Corners of the Earth channel. This is going to be the 6th video that I have done. We're going to continue reading the Bible. I left off on Genesis chapter 36. I believe we're going to start getting into the story of Joseph. Excuse me. And it's a very famous story, very interesting. A lot to learn from it, so let's get on its way. Please follow along with your own Bibles, or just listen to the video, or just watch the video. Here we go. Genesis chapter 36. This is the history of Esau, that is Edom. Esau took his wives from the daughters of Canaan, Ada, the daughter of Elon the Hittite, and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the granddaughter of Zibeon the Hivite, and Basemath, Ishmael's daughter, the sister of Nebaioth. And Ada bore Eliphaz to Esau, and Basemeth bore Reuel. And Ohiabamah bore Hush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the sons of Esau who were born to him in the land of Canaan. After that Esau took his wives, his sons, and his daughters, all the members of his household, his herd, and all his other beasts, and all that wealth that he had accumulated in the land of Canaan, and he went to another land some distance away from Jacob his brother. For their goods had become too many for them to dwell together, and the land where they were residing was not able to sustain them because of their herds. So Esau took up dwelling in the mountainous region of Seir. Esau is Edom. And this is the history of Esau, the father of Edom, in the mountainous region of Seir. There are the names of the sons of Esau: Eliphaz, the son of Ada, Esau's wife, Reuel, and the son of Basemath, Esau's wife. The sons of Eliphaz were Teman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Timnah became the concubine of Eliphaz, Esau's son. In time she bore to Eliphaz Amalek. These are the sons of Ada, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Reuel: Nahath, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. These were the sons of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, the granddaughter of Zibeon, Esau's wife, whom she bore to Esau: Jeush, Jalam, and Korah. These are the sheks of the sons of Esau, the sons of Eliphaz, Esau's firstborn: Shik Teman, Shik Omar, Shik Zepho, Shik Kenaz, Shik Korah, Shik Gatam, and Shik Amalek. These are the sheikhs of Eliphaz in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Ada. These are the sons of Reuel, Esau's son: Shik Nahath, Shik Zerah, Shik Shammah, and Shik Mizah. These are the sheikhs of Reuel in the land of Edom. These are the sons of Basemath, Esau's wife. Finally, these are the sons of Oholibamah, Esau's wife: Shik, Jehush, Shik, Jalam, and Shik Korah. These are the sheikhs of Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna, Esau's wife. These are the sons of Esau, and these are their sheikhs. He is Edom. These are the sons of Seir the Horite, the inhabitants of the land: Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These are the sheikhs of the Horites, the sons of Seir in the land of Edom. The son of Lotan were Hori and Hemam, and Lotan's sister was Timnah. These are the sons of Shobal: Alvan, Manahath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. These are the sons of Zibeon: Aiah and Anna. This is the Anna who found the hot springs in the wilderness while he was tending the donkeys for Zibeon his father. These are the children of Anna: Dishon and Oholibamah, the daughter of Anna. These are the sons of Dishon: Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Cheran. These are the sons of Ezer: Bilhan, Zaavan, and Akan. These are the sons of Dishan: Uz and Aran. These are the sheiks of the Horites: Sheik Lotan, Sheik Shobal, Sheik Zibeon, Sheik Anah, Sheik Drashon, Sheik Ezer, and Sheik Dishan. These are the sheiks of the Horites according to their sheiks in the land of Seir. Now, these are the kings who reigned in the land of Edom before any king resigned over the Israelites. Bela, son of Beor, reigned in Edom, and the name of his city was Dinahaba. When Bela died, Jobab, son of Zerah, from Bozrah, began to reign in his place. When Jobab died, Husham, from the land of the Temanites, began to reign in his place. When Husham died, Hadad, son of Bedad, who defeated the Midianites in the territory of Moab, began to reign in the place, and the name of the city was Abith. When Hadad died, Samlah from Masrekah began to reign in his place. When Samlah died, Shaul from Rehoboth by the river began to reign in his place. When Shaul died, Baal-Hanan, the son of Achbor, began to reign in his place. When Baal-Hanan, the son of Achbor, died, Hadad began to reign in his place. The name of his city was Pau, and the name of his wife was Mehetabel, the daughter of Matred, the daughter of Mezahab. So these are the names of the sheiks of Esau according to their families, according to their places, by their names: Sheik Timnah, Sheik Alva, Sheik Jetheth, Sheik Ohelabama, Sheik Elah, Sheik Pinon, Sheik Kenaz, Sheik Teman, Sheik Mibzar, Sheik Magdiel, and Sheik Iram. These are the sheiks of Edom according to their settlements in the land of their possessions. This is Esau, the father of Edom. And by the way, the word sheik means was a tribal chief. Chapter 37. Jacob continued to dwell in the land of Canaan, where his father had lived as a foreigner. This is the history of Jacob. When Joseph was 17 years old, the young man was tending the flock with the sons of Bilhah, the sons of Zilpah, and the wives of his father. And Joseph brought a bad report about them to their father. Now Israel loved Joseph, because then all his other sons, because he was the son of his old age, and he had a special robe made for him. When his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all his other brothers, they began to hate him, and they could not speak peacefully to him. Later, Joseph had a dream and told it to the brothers, and they found further reason to hate him. He said to them, "Please listen to this dream that I had. They were binding sheaves in the middle of the field when my sheaf got up and stood erect, and your sheaves encircled and bowed down to my sheaf." His brother said to him, "Are you really going to make yourself king over us and dominate us?" So they found another reason to hate him, because of his dreams and what he said. After that, he still had another dream, and he related it to his brothers. "I have had another dream. This time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me." Then he related it to his father as well as his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said to him, "What is your meaning of this dream of yours? Am I as well as your mother and your brothers really going to come and bow down to the earth to you?" And his brothers grew jealous of him, but his father kept saying in his mind. His brothers now went to pasture their father's flock near Shechem. Israel later said to Joseph, "Your brothers are tending flocks near Shechem, are they not? Come, and let me send you to them." At this he had said to him, "I am ready." So he said to him, "Go, please, and see whether your brothers are well. See how the flock is, and bring word back to me." With that, he sent him away from the valley to Hebron, and he went on toward Shechem. Later a man found him as he wandering in a field. The man asked him, "What are you looking for?" To this he said, "I am looking for my brothers. Please tell me, where are they tending flocks?" The man continued, "They have pulled away from here, for I have them saying, 'Let us go to Dothan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them at Dothan. Now they caught sight of him from a distance, and before he reached them, they began plotting against him to put him to death. So they said to one another, "Look, here comes the dreamer. Come, now, let us kill him and pitch him into one of the water pits, and we will say that a vicious wild animal devoured him. Then let us see what will become of his dreams." When Reuben heard this, he tried to rescue him from them. So he said, "Let us not take his life." Reuben said to them, "Do not shed blood. Throw him into the water pit in the wilderness, but do not harm him." His purpose was to rescue him from them in order to return him to his father. So as soon as Joseph came to the brothers, they stripped Joseph off his robe, the special robe that he wore, and they took him and threw him into the water pit. At that time the pit was empty. There was no water in it. Then they sat down to eat. When they looked up, there was a caravan of Ishmaelites coming from Gilead. Their camels were carrying labdanum, gum, balsam, and resinous bark, and they were on their way down to Egypt. At this, Judah said to his brothers, "What profit would there be if we killed our brother and covered over his blood? Come now, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and do not let our hand be upon him. After all, he is our brother, our flesh." So they listened to their brother. And when the Midianite merchants were passing by, they lifted Joseph up out of the water pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver. These men took Joseph into Egypt. Later, when Reuben returned to the water pit and saw that Joseph was not in the water pit, he ripped his garments apart. When he returned to his brothers, he exclaimed, "The child is gone, and what am I going to do?" So they took Joseph's robe and slaughtered a male goat and dipped the robe in the blood. After that, they sent a special robe to their father and said, "This is what we found. Please examine whether this is your son's robe or not." Then he examined it and exclaimed, "It is my son's robe. A vicious wild animal must have devoured him. Joseph is surely torn to pieces." With that, Jacob ripped his garments apart and put sackcloth around his waist and mourned his son for many days. And all his sons and all the daughters kept trying to comfort him, but he kept refusing to take comfort, saying, "I will go down into the grave mourning my son." And his father continued weeping for him. Now the Midianites sold him in Egypt to Potiphar, a court official of Pharaoh, and the chief of the guard. Chapter 38. About that time Judah left his brothers and pitched his tent near Adulamite, man named Hira. There Judah saw the daughter of a certain Canaanite named Shua, so he took her and had relations with her. And she became pregnant. Later she bore a son, and he named him Again she became pregnant and bore a son and named him Onan. Yet again she bore a son and named him Shelah. He was in Ashzib, where she bore him. In time Judah took a wife for his firstborn, and her name was Tamar. But Judah's firstborn, was displeasing to Jehovah, so Jehovah put him to death. In view of that, Judah said to Onan, "Have relations with your brother's wife and perform brother-in-law marriage with her and raise up offsprings for your brother." But Onan knew that the offsprings would not be considered his. So when he did have relations with his brother's wife, he wasted his semen on the ground so as not to give offspring to his brother. What he did was bad in the eyes of Jehovah, so he also put him to death. Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Dwell as a widow in the house of your father until my son Shelah grows up." For he said to himself, "He too may die like his brothers." So Tamar went and stayed in her own father's house. Some time passed, and Judah's wife, the daughter of Shua, died. Judah kept the mourning period, and then he went into his sheep shearers in the Timnah with his companion Hira the Adulamite. Tamar was told, "Here your father-in-law is going up to Timnah to shear his sheep." With that she removed her widow's clothing and veiled herself and covered herself with a shawl and sat down at the entrance of Enaim, which is the old road to Timnah, for she saw that Shelah had grown up, and yet she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah caught sight of her, he at once took her for a prostitute, because she had covered her face. So he turned aside to her by the road and said, "Allow me, please, to have relations with you," for he did not know that she was his daughter-in-law. However, she said, "What will you give me that you may have relations with me?" To this he said, "I will send a young goat from my herd." But she said, "Will you give us security until you send it?" He continued, "What security should I give you?" To which she said, your seal ring, and your cord and your rod that is in your hand." Then he gave them to her and had relations with her, and she became pregnant by him. After that, she got up and went away and removed her shawl and clothed herself with her widow's clothing. And Judah sent the young goat by the hand of his companion the Adulamite to get back the security from the hand of the woman, but he never found her. He inquired of the men of her place, saying, "Where is that temple prostitute in Enaim along the road?" But they said, "No temple prostitute has ever been in this place." Finally he returned to Judah and said, "I never found her, and besides the men of the place said, no temple prostitute has ever been in this place." So Judah said, "Let her take them for herself, in order that we may not fall into contempt. At any rate, I have sent this young goat, but you never found her." However, about 3 months later, Judah was told, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has acted as a prostitute, and she is also pregnant by her prostitution." At that, Judah said, "Bring her out, and let her be burned." As she was being brought out, she sent word to her father-in-law, "I am pregnant by the man to whom these belong." Then she added, "Please examine to whom these belong, the seal ring and the cord and the rod." Then Judah examined them and said, "She is more righteous than I am, because I did not give her to Shelah, my son." And he had no further sexual relations with her after that. When the time came for her to give birth, there were twins in her womb. As she was given birth, one put up his hand, and the midwife immediately took a scarlet thread and tied it around his hand, saying, "This one came out first." But as soon as he drew back his hand, his brother came out, and she exclaimed, "What a breach you have made for yourself!" So he named Perez. Afterward his brother came out, around whose hand the scarlet thread was tied, and he was named Zerah. Chapter 39. Now Joseph was taken down to Egypt, and an Egyptian named Potiphar, a court official of Pharaoh and chief of the guard, brought him from the Ishmaelites who had taken him down there. But Jehovah was with Joseph. As a result, he became successful and was put over the house of his master, the Egyptian. And his master saw that Jehovah was with him, and that Jehovah was making everything that he did successful. Joseph kept finding favor in his eyes, and he became his personal attendant. So he appointed him over his house, and he put him in charge of all that was his. From the time he appointed him over his house and in charge of all that was his, Jehovah kept blessing the house of the Egyptian because of Joseph. And Jehovah's blessing came to be on all that he had in the house and in the field. He eventually left everything that was in Joseph's care, and he gave no thought to anything except the food he was eating. Moreover, Joseph grew to be well built and handsome. Now after these things, the wife of his master began to cast her eyes on Joseph and say, "Lie down with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Here my master does not know what is with me in the house, and he has entrusted everything he has into my care. There is no one greater in this house than I am, and he has not withheld from me anything at all except you, because you are his wife. So how could I commit this great badness and actually sin against God?" So day after day she spoke to Joseph, but he never consented to lie with her or to remain with her. But on one of the days when he went into the house to do his work, none of the household servants were in the house. Then she grabbed a hold of him by his garment and said, "Lie down with me." But he left his garment in her hand and fled outside. As soon as she saw that he had left his garment in her hand and had fled outside, she began to cry out to the men of her house and to say to them, "Look, he brought to us this Hebrew man to make us a laughingstock. He came to me to lie down with me, but I began to cry out at the top of my voice. Then, as soon as he heard me raising my voice and screaming, he left his garment beside me and fled outside." After that, she laid his garment beside her until his master came to his house. Then she told him the same thing, saying, "The Hebrew servant whom you brought to us came to me to make me a laughingstock. But as soon as I raised my voice and began to scream, he left his garment beside me and fled outside." As soon as his master heard these words, his wife spoke to him, saying, "These are the things your servant did to me." His anger ablazed. So Joseph's master took him and gave him over to the prison, the place where the prisoners of the king were kept under arrest, and he remained there in the prison. But Jehovah continued with Joseph and kept showing loyal love to him and granting him favor in the eyes of the chief officer of the prison. So the chief officer of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners in the prison, and everything that they were doing there, he was the one having it done. The chief officer of the prison was looking after absolutely nothing that was in Joseph's care, for Jehovah was with Joseph, and Jehovah made whatever he did successful. Chapter 40. After these things, the chief cupbearer of the king of Egypt and the chief baker sinned against their lord, the king of Egypt. So Pharaoh grew indignant at his two officers, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker, and he committed them to the jail of the house of the chief of the guard, to the place where Joseph was a prisoner. Then the chief of the guard assigned Joseph to be with them and to take care of them, and they remained in jail for some time. The cupbearer and the baker of the king of Egypt, who were confined in the prison, each had a dream on the same night, and each dream had its own interpretation. The next morning, when Joseph came in and saw them, they looked dejected. So he asked the officers of Pharaoh who were in custody with him in the master's house, "Why are your faces gloomy today?" At this they said to him, "We each had a dream, but there is no interpreter with us." Joseph said to them, "Do not interpretations belong to God? Relate it to me, please." So the chief cupbearer related his dream to Joseph, saying to him, "In my dream there was a vine before me, and on the vine there were 3 twigs, and as it was sprouting shoots, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. And Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes and squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup. After that I put the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Then Joseph said to him, "This is the interpretation. The 3 twigs are 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will bring you out, restoring you to your office, and will put Pharaoh's cup into his hand as you did before when you were his cupbearer. Nevertheless, you must remember me when things go well with you. Please show me loyal love and mention me to Pharaoh in order to get me out of this place. I was, in fact, kidnapped from the land of the Hebrews, and I have not done anything here for which they should put me in prison." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had interpreted something good, he said to him, "I too was in my dream, and there were 3 baskets of white bread on my head. And in the top basket there were all sorts of baked goods for Pharaoh, and there were birds eating them out of the basket on top of my head." Then Joseph answered, "This is the interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. 3 days from now Pharaoh will behead you, and will hang you on a stake, and the birds will eat your flesh from you. Now the 3rd day was Pharaoh's birthday, and he made a feast for all his servants. And he brought out both the chief cupbearer and the chief baker in the presence of his servants. And he returned the chief cupbearer to his post of cupbearer, and he continued to hand the cup to Pharaoh. But he hanged the chief baker just as Joseph had interpreted to them. However, the chief cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He kept forgetting him." Chapter 41. At the end of 2 full years, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing by the Nile River, and there, coming up from the river, were 7 fine-looking, fat cows, and they were feeding on the Nile grass. There were 7 other cows that looked ugly and thin coming up from after them from the Nile, and they stood alongside the fat cows by the bank of the Nile. Then the ugly, thin cows began to eat up the 7 fine-looking fat cows. At this, Pharaoh woke up. Then he went back to sleep, and he had a second dream. There were 7 ears of grain coming up on the stalk, full of choice. And growing up after them were 7 ears of grain that were thin and scorched by the east wind. And the thin ears of grain began to swallow up the 7 full and choice ears of grain. At this, Pharaoh woke up and realized that it was a dream. But in the morning his spirit became agitated. So he sent for all the magic practicing priests of Egypt and all her wise men. Pharaoh related his dreams to them, but there was no one who could interpret them for Pharaoh. At that, the chief cupbearer spoke with Pharaoh, saying, "I am confessing my sins today." Pharaoh was indignant at his servants, so he committed me to the jail of the house of the chief of the guard, both me and the chief baker. After that, we each had a dream on that same night. He and I each had a dream with its own interpretation. And there with us was a young Hebrew man, a servant of the chief of the guard. When we related them to him, he interpreted for us the meaning of each dream. It happened exactly as he had interpreted to us. I was restored to my office, but the other man was hanged. So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and they brought him quickly from the prison. He shaved and changed his clothes and went into Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, "I had a dream, but there is no one to interpret it. Now I have heard it said about you that you can hear a dream and interpret it." At this Joseph answered Pharaoh, "I need not be considered. God will speak concerning Pharaoh's welfare." Pharaoh went on to say to Joseph, "In my dream I was standing on the bank of the Nile River, and there, coming up from the Nile, were 7 fine-looking fat cows, and they began to feed on the Nile grass. And there were 7 other cows coming up after them, poor and very bad-looking and thin. I have never seen such bad-looking cows in all the land of Egypt. And the skinny, bad cows began to eat up the first 7 fat cows. But when they had consumed them, no one could have known that they had done so, since their appearance was just as bad as at the start. At that I woke up. After that, I saw in my dream 7 ears of grain coming up on one stalk, full and choice. Growing up after them were 7 ears of shriveled grain, thin and scorched by the east wind. Then the thin ears of grain began to swallow up the 7 choice ears of grain. So I told it to the magic practicing priests, but there was no one who could explain it to me." Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, "The dreams of Pharaoh are one of the same. The true God has told to Pharaoh what he will do. The 7 good cows are 7 years. Likewise, the 7 good ears of grain are 7 years. The dreams are one and the same. The 7 skinny and bad cows that came up after them are 7 years. And the 7 empty ears of grain scorched by the east wind will prove to be 7 years of famine. This is just as I told to Pharaoh. The true God has caused Pharaoh to see what he will do. There are to be 7 years of great abundance in all the land of Egypt. But 7 years of famine will certainly arise after them, and all the abundance in the land of Egypt will certainly be forgotten, and the famine will exhaust the land. And the previous abundance in the land will not be remembered, because of the famine afterward for it will be very severe. The dream was given twice to Pharaoh, because the matter has been firmly established by the true God, and the true God will soon carry it out. So now let Pharaoh look for a man who is discreet and wise, and place him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh take action and appoint overseers in the land, and he should collect 1/5 of the produce of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. And let them conflict all the food during these coming good years, and let them stockpile grain under Pharaoh's authority as food to be stored in the cities and safeguarded there. The food should serve as a supply for the land for the 7 years of famine that will occur in the land of Egypt, so that the land may not perish in that famine." This proposal seemed good to Pharaoh and all his servants. So Pharaoh said to his servants, "Can another man be found like this one in whom there is in the Spirit of God?" Pharaoh then said to Jacob, "Since God has caused you to know all of this, there is no one as discreet and wise as you. You will personally be over my house, and all my people will obey you implicitly. Only in my role as king will I be greater than you." And Pharaoh added to Joseph, "See, I am putting you over all the land of Egypt." Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his own hand and put it on Joseph's hand, and clothed him with garments of fine linen, and placed a necklace of gold around his neck. Moreover, he had him ride in the 2nd chariot of honor that he had, and they would call out ahead of him, "Avrek!" Thus he put him over all the land of Egypt. Pharaoh further said to Joseph, "I am Pharaoh, but without your authorization, no man may do a single thing in all the land of Egypt. After that, Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphenath Paneah, and gave him Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, the priest of On, as a wife. And Joseph began to oversee the land of Egypt. Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Then Joseph went out from before Pharaoh and traveled throughout all the land of Egypt. And during the 7 years of abundance, the land went on producing plentifully. And he kept collecting all the food of the 7 years from the land of Egypt. And he would stockpile the food in the cities. In each city he would store the food from the fields around it. Joseph continued stockpiling grain in every great quantity, like the sand of the sea, until finally they gave up measuring it because it could not be measured. Before the year of the famine arrived, 2 sons were born to Joseph, whom Asenath, the daughter of Potipherah, the priest of On, bore to him. Joseph named the firstborn Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my trouble and all the house of my father. And he named the second one Ephraim, for he said, God has made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. Then the 7 years of abundance in the land of Egypt ended, and the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had said. The famine developed in all the lands, but in all the land of Egypt there was bread. Eventually, all the land of Egypt suffered from the famine, and the people began to cry to Pharaoh for bread. Then Pharaoh said to all the Egyptians, Go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you. The famine continued all over all the surface of the earth. Then Joseph began to open up all the granaries that were among them and to sell to the Egyptians, as the famine had a strong grip on the land of Egypt. Moreover, people of all the earth came to Egypt to buy from Joseph, because the famine had a strong grip on all the earth. I'm going to end it there. Very interesting how Joseph was sold as because of the envious of his siblings, and it kind of God was with him, and then it ended up being a good thing because now he has like a purpose. Obviously, he had like bad luck because he was framed by his owner's wife because he didn't commit sexual relations with her. So he was in prison for a while, but then it all was perfect timeline because he had interpretations of the dreams in there, and then it helped out because then Pharaoh had a dream. So I think everything happened for a reason. So it kind of goes with our lives. I see it as, some things happen for a reason, even though it might be, not fun sometimes, but in the end, everything happens for a reason, and I'm a big believer of that. So that was a good, interesting reading. We are almost done, though. We're in chapter 42, and there's 50 chapters, so probably 2 more videos. I don't know. Some of the chapters are pretty long, but anyways, that was fun. Good reading. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you're all doing good. Again, I'm enjoying this YouTube channel. I love that I'm reading the Bible every day again, so it's actually beneficial all around. I get to share it with the world, and revisiting the Bible, so it's all good. So you all take care out there. Hope you're all doing good, and your families. Take care.